I just wanted to say thank you for actually just saying that you would do this, man. I really appreciate it.
Of course, man. I hope this is the first of many. You're awesome, dude.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for asking me.
Yeah. So you're an app developer.
Yes. I do a couple things. One of which is I build apps for startups and individuals. I've worked in big tech for like 4 years, and I've been doing this full time for about 3 at this point. Although I was doing this before, while I was still in big tech, allegedly. And then and then also I build like enterprise level software, so like large websites. I'm talking like streaming service kind of things. So I've built a number of large things like e-commerce platforms, rental platforms, even things for like exotic car rental streaming services. I build like big sites and apps for people, and that was how but I still build things that are necessarily small. But yes, I build apps and sites for people.
And you're from Chicago, right?
So yes, I was born in Chicago. Yes.
So how did you get from like being in Chicago and then like being in LA? So did you come from like LA just for work, or is it just because like you like the city and you just wanted to be here? Or?
I wanted a bigger city and a culture shock. The thing about Los Angeles is that it has a very low floor but a very high ceiling. You really can do anything and be anyone here, in my opinion, and because it has a much more diverse industry set than people realize. People think it's Hollywood, but simultaneously it's like you got SpaceX in that direction and NASA in that direction. If you throw a rock, you hit like 13 different startups, and so there's no lack of creative ideas. But I came here with a bet that there's a lot of people with a lot of really good ideas, but not a lot of people or not enough people know exactly what they're doing. And so when it comes to building tech, and I do know what I'm doing. So I came here, and sure enough, I just started trying to socialize, which I was horrible at it. But eventually I found a few people that were like, they needed an app, or they needed a website, or they needed someone to help coach them through tech in general, not even just building something, but just coaching. Things like that, and then I found it. And so I came here, like I sold 95% of my stuff, I bought a car, and I threw the rest of my 5% of my shit in that car and drove it alone to California, where I knew like one acquaintance, and I thought, all right, I'm gonna give this 3 months, and then that was like 4 years ago. And so it was just, I came here because I just found an opportunity. And also, it was more of a culture shock. You feel like you're in the United States, but you don't. It's a very different vibe. It's very culturally oriented. It's very risk tolerant. If you go on the East Coast, you go in Chicago, in many cases you'll find things that are like risk intolerant. Like in order for someone to take you seriously, you have to have been generating profit for like the past 3 years, and you had to have work for this dude and this dude and this dude. And in Hollywood, some cases it can be like that, but really it's like LA does not nearly to the same extent believe in the concept of paying your dues for dues' sake. You can do it, you have a good idea, you have at least some kind of track record of doing something, or even just you present yourself well, people will take you seriously, whether you've been doing it for 30 days or whether you've been doing it for 30 years. And that is a humongous thing for any entrepreneur to get a leg up, because the concept of like, if you want to make it in New York City, for example, like you have to like really pay your dues. So it can just take a long time to do something. But in LA, you can just have a good idea, and you will eventually bump into somebody who takes you seriously. In fact, most people will take you seriously, but you will eventually bump into somebody who like purchases your product. So you really can like start from the ground and actually make something insane here. Now you have to take a lot of risks. Like it will let you be homeless and die, but it will also let you shoot rockets off into the atmosphere.
I'm actually curious to know, what were like the risks that you had to take? Like I don't know, if you were like working with like some other like app organization, or you were just doing things by yourself. But like, what was like the risk that you took from like taking that leap of faith? From moving to LA and kind of just doing your own thing. Like, did you know that you were ready, and how did you do that?
I had a feeling that I was ready, but simultaneously there was no perfect time to do it realistically. And also I knew that I was in an environment where, at least it might be different because I'm fully an Angelino now. I'm a resident of the state of California, taxpayer. I have my income tax and my residency says California. I have an ID and all that stuff. A license plates California, but I would say that for what I was doing, people considered $3,000 to be a lot of money in Chicago. And don't get me wrong, that is a lot of money, but that's not something you can actually live off of. So it's like, and you also have to like, it just getting here's the thing, it was the, how do I put it? When I was in Chicago and I wanted to find a contract to build someone an app or a website, you would be essentially like haggling price, or someone would be trying to essentially get you to build something for like absolute rock bottom, to the point where you're not even making a profit, or it's not even really worth your time. You can't even make a living off of that kind of thing. Whereas if you come to LA, people will pull the trigger on something that's $15,000, $20,000 much more quickly, because they know that they will make money off of this kind of thing like that. They don't try, like they haggle a little bit, but they like, as soon as it makes like justifiable sense, they're like, all right, let's do it. And so you can make a living off of that. So it was like the knowledge of that, and the knowledge of just, that's the thing that California does that I think is just almost impossible to replicate, and why this place is just intoxicating, at least to me. It's its culture, man. Like, people are just so risk tolerant, and they just are very trigger happy when it comes to investments that have a possibility of paying off. Like, people, like, for example, that even when it doesn't come to money, let's take, for example, software engineering, for example. People here were using like cross-platform app development things, when the rest of the world was like still making things just Android and a whole other code base just for iOS and things like that. People in California were like React Native, Flutter, dark code out the butt, and it's just like people were using new things, cutting-edge things right away, even when it wasn't totally clear whether these things would take off and how beneficial they were. Even when it wasn't exactly perfect as compared to the previous thing, but they did it because it had more upside. And before you know it, people are making more advanced software. Same kind of thing with business, everything like that. People are willing to like actually take risks and take things seriously, and it's just, it has allowed my business to flourish. So I would say that yes, there was a risk when I started doing things fully on my own. I took probably 75% pay cut compared to my full-time job that I was taking at the time. But the one thing that I liked about it was the fact that there's no ceiling. You got a job. There's a lot of differences between being a business owner and having a job. The first one is that if you have a job, you have one job. If you're a business owner, you have 7 jobs. And so you have that like constant thing weighing down on you. Oh, did I get back this person? And also it's like your performance at this job absolutely directly impacts what your take-home salary is. And you also have no idea. I mean, you have an idea, like based on historical data, but like someone could cancel a contract and that could decrease the amount that you have for the remainder of the year and things like that. So you have to keep working. Your future income is not guaranteed. So you have to keep going.
And another question.
It's a mindset shift that comes from it. But it's just like, if you're comfortable with being risked, and crucially, if you're a business owner, if you're truly a business owner, and you really want to like make it and make this your life kind of thing like that, there's a very high ceiling. You really can, you have an unmatched level of freedom, and you have a humongous ability to really become rich or become wealthy. Or, I mean, being rich isn't my big goal. I think that's going to be a side effect that that is a side effect that happens, but you get to do really cool things.
I know you said that, like, what you just said, like, makes a lot of sense, but, like, I actually want to know, too, like, are there, like, any type of, like, daily sacrifices you make when you're doing, like, your work? Like, are there times when, like, friends will call you and say, like, oh, like, can we hang out or something, and then you'll probably be, you know, busy doing, like, a project or something like that? Are there, like, anything like that you have to deal with?
Well, for me, friends don't really call me to hang out because I don't really have... I'm trying to grow more of a social life. I just don't have as much of a social life as I want. Like, I just don't know... This is just one thing that's me personally, and this is not the same for a lot of people. I know a lot of people where they have a core group of friends. They have a community. Then the people will call them and be like, hey, man, you want to go see this movie? Or, hey, do you want to go out, hang out, or something like that? I don't really have friends that call me just to want to hang out. I'm alone a lot of the time. And that's just something personally. That's not something that is innate to being an entrepreneur. But yeah, and the people that I do know that I would really consider friends and things like that, like they're also really ambitious. So like they have stuff going on too. So you generally, I think partially, I can't say for sure, but I think you just have less of a social life. Like you just don't, because you're working all the time, or because you don't like. It's where your social life just is much less. I don't really get people asking me, hey, do you want to go out? Or hey, do you want to go out tomorrow? I am the one that has to like ask people if they want to go out somewhere, and a lot of times people will ghost me, or a lot of times people will just...
Same here, you're not alone, man.
Like it's just, or just like I'm not, I don't have a core community that I would host. Like a lot of people will say, they have a community of people that they can, even if they don't know them well, they can walk up and there's some kind of shared common element or something that makes an interaction with them warm. I don't think I've really ever had something like that. It's not like I'm even kind of writing a little something about this. I don't know if I'll publish it, but it's called no community. You just, the idea that people are shocked by that sometimes, but that is possible. Like, they just have no community. And so I guess that's part of it, and I think it's exacerbated by the fact that I'm working all the time, or I'm constantly in that mindset. All I think about is this. You sacrifice community, that level of community that you have, because you just didn't have it to begin with, or because your schedule can be preclusive sometimes to going to a pool party or whatnot. And, that's if people even invite you to that. And then there is... or sometimes it's just like you're never quite bumping into people always in the same times and the same things. And here's the thing, if you are, let's say one day you get real baller and like you get an office. Right? I don't even think you need an office today or whatnot too, but let's say you get an office. So you do bump into coworkers, there's a power imbalance. Like you're here and there, like even when people don't want to think of something as a hierarchy, when you're the owner, there is a hierarchy to it. So you're probably not going to be growing out buddy with your employees. So the people that you work with, you're not going to really become friends with them, not truly, because you're always in you're signing their checks. Yeah. So the friendship, try as might, money is the number one stressor of friendships. So anyway, I gotta distill this off a little bit. Yes, but I would think that if there's anything that I really sacrificed, it's not so much financial. And when I first started out, it was definitely financial. Got my income cut by 75% when I decided to go it alone. And for a lot of people, they wait until their income is the same and everything like that. And I don't think you need to do that. My income grew substantially. I was happy about that. But I would say your social life.
Absolutely.
Because you're... but then again, I never really had too much of a crazy cool social life. I go to most things alone, and that is a big project I'm working on. How do I do more social things with friends? Everything like that. And by the way, people that might be, here's one thing I should say, especially if you're in a large city and things like that, friends with benefits don't count. That's the thing. Friends with benefits do not count. Right. I'll say that once, platonic friends they don't just happen. And so that is one thing that I think you really sacrifice as a entrepreneur, is just that social life. It just doesn't naturally gel or develop as much. So don't just be prepared for the intense work hours, be prepared for the loneliness and alienation that you might find necessarily. And you've got to be prepared for the fact that you have to really work at it and put effort into reaching out to people for no reason. Hey, do you want to go? And trying to nurture relationships into something, kind of thing like that. It's just, anyway. Yeah. So I'd say socially is one thing that happens. For sure. I wish I had more friends. That's kind of it.
Well, I'm your friend. So
I'm your friend too. I would love to hang out with you.
Absolutely, man, for sure. Also, too, I also wanted to ask because I hear it like all the time with like, successful people and their morning routines. Like they wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and then take a cold shower and then read 100 books. Like, do you do any of that? Like, I want to know like what your morning routine is.
Honestly, I mean, my morning routine just kind of gelled into something like. Will it help you sharpen your focus kind of thing? Like, yeah, but it's all different. For some people, just having a cup of coffee and eating an apple in the morning is all they really need. For some people, they really want to do 100 books. Part of that is just platitudes to really make yourself seem like this cult of personality kind of thing. Here's what I do in the morning. I try to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I hit the snooze button about 2 times and get up around 7. Before I was doing that, I was generally getting up around 10 or something like that. I was 8, and then it gradually got later and later and later because I allowed myself to drift, staying up later, and then I started getting up later. So now I just recently, like in the past year, I set my alarm. I set like 15 alarms at 6 a.m. So I wake up at 6 a.m. I probably hit the snooze button twice and get up at like 6:30, maybe 7 at the latest. I wake up, I make myself a cup of coffee, walk around my apartment, throw open the blinds, look at the sunlight in your face, and then throw some water, do your morning routine, grooming, finding things to wear, probably take like an hour or something like that, go for a walk around the lake. And then the whole time you're also attached to your phone. You're checking if anything important came in. And importantly, I don't respond to things right then and there, right when I wake up, because I want to wake up a little bit and formulate a response. Like I got an email this morning that I'm like, all right, I should really formulate a response to this. And some of them you can just like kind of send. But anyway, that's my thing. I allow myself to just be in my head. I have a cup of coffee. I go for a walk and I don't know, I throw on educational YouTube videos. I don't read 100 books. Yeah. I have a host of books that I really want to get to reading, but I should read more. I should read more like books. I read articles all the fucking time. But like, when it comes to articles and sciencey things, I read them all the time. But like just fiction novels, I should read them because I write them. I enjoy writing. But it's like the coffee, I make myself an omelet, I go for a walk, get dressed, groom myself, and then I just throw on a bunch of educational YouTube videos. Like today I learned about how much undersea fiber optic cable we have crisscrossing the Atlantic and Pacific and everything. And it's like enough to circle the moon like 70 times or something like that. And so I try to learn something new every morning by putting on educational YouTube.
That's cool.
That's kind of one thing I do, and I generally get up at like 6, 7 in the morning.
So so going back on like the app developing, like if somebody wanted to go to you and they wanted an app developed by you, like how much do you typically charge? And like
it depends. I typically have a minimum of about $12,000, but generally, I mean, I will work on things that are smaller if I know the person. I would say a rough minimum is around $5K usually. But the thing I like to do is like there are people that will make something for you for like $500, things like that. And $5K, that's if I kind of know you. But generally, I'll work on something that's $12 because it's like there's only so many things I could work on in a year, and I want to make a living. And most of my things are higher than that. Like I have a client that's starting that's like $75,000, and it's good. That's really good. But it's it range. It runs the gamut. Like the highest I've ever had is 200.
200,000?
Yes, but that's a lot of work. That's like the bulk of the year. Now you can work on different things simultaneously, but like.
And do you do it all yourself? Like.
I do a lot of it myself. I'm the principal engineer, but I do when you have something that size, you do hire additional contractors and additional engineers to be on a team that you use to help. Now, everything that comes through me, I still edit it and I still quality control and check it a million times over. So my hands touch every single little itty bitty line of code that eventually gets shipped to a client. And my hands are the ones that are editing it if it's a really important thing that needs to get there right away because I'm the one that can see it. But a lot of times there's a whole team that comes on it too, and that team can balloon up to 16 people sometimes. But it's like basically, and there's not an exact science. Like before I was doing this for other people, I was making my own projects. Like I made 2 apps that I launched to the App Store, and so throughout the time of working on it for other people, and for like small projects, not like big ones. Things like basically throughout the years, I was introduced to, tested their work, and basically the best people that I've ever found, ever, then I will bring them on. But here's the thing, like I only bring on someone if their work is just fantastic, because that's my name on the work, and I'm the one that's warranting it, and I'm the one that's getting called. And also, it's not just built and it'll work for a while, but hopefully, no, it's like you can launch it and then 1 million people can jump on it day one and it will still continue working just as fine. That is what I sell. So you have like one point of contact, you know this person is going to be around 24/7, you're getting it built to the level of there are no guesses, you just know that it works. And I don't measure things based on how much money I made from them. I base things on how much money my clients made from them. So like a real measure of success for me isn't saying I made $200,000 on this one thing. A real measure of success is saying my client made $2 million.
That's what I get from you, man. Like
that's what I would say. Kind of things like that. Yeah. That's how I get new clients. So a lot of times I'm like, people that work with me generally make 10 times their investment on what I put into it. Like that. And sometimes like I can do like a revenue share where it's like, all right, 5% of the revenue they get, I'll do this for a lot less, but 5% of the revenue that you get, I'm able to take that 5% and then send the 95% to you. And that's also a good litmus test for someone's like where they're at in their head. You don't want to work with someone that's like trying to nickel and dime literally every single thing. Now, of course, as a customer, you want to know what every cent, every dollar is going towards, and you want to know if you're overpaying or underpaying. I believe that someone's paying the correct amount when they choose my product because it's very, very expertly done, and it's and you have someone who's there for you the whole time. You're basically hiring a CTO and an entire development team, and everything just works. So you don't have to even think about technology. You just go and sell your product. And your product is just blows away the competition. That's the kind of thing I like to sell.
So another question too. So I'm also curious to know like whenever like you have a contract and everything's successful and you get paid, I just want to know like what are like some of the things that like you buy that like might be of like some type of interest to you. Like do you buy like, you know, cars, or like I could tell like you're successful, so it's like do you buy cars, or do you go on like I don't know, like first class and stuff like that?
No, I fly coach. I drive a Ford Fusion, 2019 Ford Fusion, titanium hybrid, and it's black leather. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's not. I drive a car that's worth about $20,000. I live in a 500 square foot studio apartment that's rent controlled, and I will never leave that rent controlled apartment ever. I mean, unless I make so much fuck you money that and there's like such an acute housing crisis that I'm like, all right, someone really needs this. But then again, at the same time, I don't know that I'll be able to continue this kind of like amazing thing. I diversify my investments, kind of thing like that. So I live very much below my means, not necessarily because I have to, but because that's something that gives me the peace of mind and allows me to take more risks with, like, I'm able to work on a whole, like, for the past year and a half, I've been working on a project that seeks to build transportation in the city of Los Angeles, actually build a real elevated train, public transit train. I'm buying the patents on it, or I'm filing patents for it. I'm talking to lawyers about it. I'm meeting with contractors. I'm meeting with architects. I'm meeting with all these different things, and I am making no money. In fact, I'm spending money on this.
Jeez.
So living below my means allows me to take on other moonshot kind of projects that have no clear financial gain from them. But if they work, then it's massively financially successful. But then again, you don't do it because it's massively financially successful, but you do it because you can, and you do it because it does good for your community. And also, I love it, everything like that. Yes, you could consider me wealthy, but I don't think you would really know it. Maybe from the way that I carry myself is the way that you would know it, but very few people know exactly how much I really make.
You know what's fun? Every time I see you, man, and this is like why like you inspire me, because I always see how hard you work. Every time like I walk in, like you're always on your computer, but it's like you're always like working on something, and I could just see in your face that like you are like really into like what you do.
Well, there's also a little bit of ADD in there. Squirrel. So sometimes there'll be like an educational YouTube video, but a lot of times it'll be actually responding to an email or writing a contract. Like those are long days, man. Sometimes, here's one thing, like I write my own contracts and I have lawyers review them and everything, but like that can be a day where you're just like, you could be coding or you could be like writing a payment agreement.
Right.
Everything. It's just like, all right, for every month, here's the amount or here's the milestones that are going to be laying down. And you see, anyway, when you're a business owner, you do 7 jobs. So I'm doing any one of those 7 jobs, or sometimes I'm watching Kurzgesagt educational YouTube, Wendover Productions on YouTube, and Real Life Lore and Kurzgesagt. They're my favorite things in the world. Also, Donut Media and Doug DeMuro when it comes to cars. I don't actually own cool cars. There's a few that I want, but I don't own them, and it would be financially irresponsible. I have more important things to spend my money on than that I personally view, but I am kind of a car guy. But yes, so I'm either doing one of those 7 jobs or I'm watching educational YouTube. But usually it's mostly one of those 7 jobs. But yes.
Do you own any stocks in crypto or?
I sold most of my stock in crypto, and not because I don't think that it has the potential to go up, but it's just because it monopolized all of my thought. Like, here's the thing: the only thing that you can't get back the literal only thing that you cannot buy anymore is time.
Yeah.
We're capable of making artificial islands. We can make more land. That was the one thing you thought they couldn't make more of, and we found a way to make more of it.
Right.
So it's the only thing you cannot buy in this world is more time. And I don't really have much crypto at all anymore because it just monopolizes my time, and I could be doing better things with that time. Now, a lot of people can become very rich. I've seen people become very rich off of NFTs. But also, it's like, if I become rich, I want to become rich because I actually provided a service and people benefited from it. I don't want to be rich because a meme coin went to the moon and like shit. I mean, that'd be cool. I could do a couple really cool investments with that. I could probably turn that money into more money, or I could like turn it into like a desalination plant or some crazy shit that really does provide massive beneficial things for the community and simultaneously also a return. So if I had that money just to blow, yeah, but like at the same time, I was investing into crypto for 2021. I got into it for about 6 months, and I thought to myself, like, this is just, it's living rent-free in your head. I'd rather have, I'd rather have climate change projects like carbon sequestration or getting people how to make trains, like public transit trains. I'd rather have moonshot, cool fucking things be the non-work things that live rent-free in my head. Because work will always live rent-free in my head. But I'd rather have like cool stuff that I find cool live rent-free in my head. So that's why I don't own any more crypto. But I do own stock. I do own, I basically just have a fund that I made myself. And
what stocks do you own? Like,
let me look. These are just ones that I bought over a period of time, and I own them for a couple reasons. Qualcomm, QCOM, Amazon, ON Semiconductor, ON Semiconductor. Basically, everyone has a ravenous need for phones. Everything ON Semiconductor makes chips that goes into those phones. So we use Taiwan, TSMC, Taiwan. 92% of the world's chips, like actual the places that make the chips, are located on the island of Taiwan. And there's only a few companies in the world that make chips, which are far and away. They're like an engine to a car. Like, you need it. You need it, you need it, you need it. You have no hope of making that computer or that phone or any electronic thing in this room, those cameras, anything. They have no hope of working without a chip. They need a chip. And ON Semiconductor is one of the companies that make chips. So I own them. Microsoft. Alphabet, so Google, but voting class shares. So Googl, that's voting class shares. Not that they have a total worth difference, but I'd rather have ones that allow voting, even if it's like not even a hope of it.
Right.
But yes, they're in theory. Apple, Tesla, I own that for a long time, and I know it's valid. I know it's volatile, but at the same time, I think it'll keep going up long term. Which over the past 3 months. It totally has. 56% up in the past 3 months. Meta. I purchased more than when Threads came out. I love Threads.
Same here.
AbbVie. It's a pharmaceutical company, but it's also from the northern, for only reason it's from the northern suburbs of Chicago, North Chicago, Illinois, everything like that. But at the same time, it's just like, this is the only one that I think is a little. I don't try to buy stocks that I think are morally questionable. This is the only one that I have that I don't know if I really like. It's just morally questionable. Home Depot. I just think that people need more housing, and people are going to buy Home Depot stuff. So I own Home Depot. Also has a dividend on it. So I have a lot of stocks like Qualcomm, On Semiconductor, Apple. I think AbbVie, Home Depot, these all have dividends, so they pay dividends monthly. EEM, which is just a index fund. You know, if you've ever heard of like index funds. Yeah. EEM is just in emerging markets, so like Africa, small countries in Europe, like they own, like this is an index fund where you put money into it and then it takes your money and then it basically splits it up over a variety of smaller companies of emerging markets. And so I think that emerging markets are going to grow, so I have that. QQQ, which you see a lot of ads on them, but they're basically just, it's another index fund. It does really well. It just tracks some of the highest growth stuff. Rivian. I fucking love Rivian. I know this might be E for
Lucid.
Yes, exactly. Lucid's great. I love Lucid. I want a Lucid one day. Everything. I think they're fantastic. Because I think it's practical. I don't want it for the luxury. I think it's because it's practical. Everything. Like
Would you choose a Lucid or a Tesla? Like which
Lucid.
one?
Any day of the week. Any day of the week. The problem is that Lucid doesn't have the supercharger network, but the federal government just paid Tesla to allow other manufacturers like Ford, example, to use their supercharging network. So in the near future, you're going to see non-Tesla vehicles using Tesla superchargers, which is fantastic for Tesla stock, but also it alleviates a lot of the problems with other electric cars because how do you charge them?
Yeah.
If you don't, like I'm in a rental. How do you not, like, how do you, like, how do I get a charger installed in my rental? Like, I can, legally, I'm allowed to ask my landlord to do that. And if it's possible, then legally she kind of has to. I mean, it's the city of Los Angeles law, but also know the law. That's one thing I'll say. Know the law. Know what you're allowed to do. And the last one is Porsche. I own a little bit of Porsche, like about 100 shares of Porsche, everything like that. And not for their cars, although I think their cars are sexy. I'm not the kind of guy that like really wants a Porsche kind of thing like that. But I got it because they're alternative fuels. Porsche is doing a massive amount of investment in this educational YouTube. I learned this from like that video that had 50,000 views on it, or like the video from CNBC. Porsche is doing massive investments in alternative fuels. So there's going to be 2 billion more internal combustion engines that are on the road now. It sounds like a lot of numbers, and it is, but a large number of them are actually going to be replacing less efficient internal combustion engines that are coming off the road because they're aging out. But we're going to have more internal combustion engines on the road in the next like 20 years. We're probably going to find fuel for that. Well, Porsche is creating is furthering advancement on producing fuel from carbon capture. So as carbon capture technology, that's pulling carbon dioxide from the air, we pull it, and what do we do with it? Well, one of the things we can do with it, turns out, is make more gasoline, which is really, you want to store it somewhere, you want to take it out of the atmosphere. So absolutely, I want less carbon in the atmosphere, but if we have to have more internal combustion engine on the road, if that's just something that's gonna happen, I prefer that not to happen. But like if that is something that is gonna happen, then I do think that we're going to also look at ways that we can most sustainably acquire gasoline for those engines. And the most sustainable way to acquire gasoline for those engines is going to be carbon sequestration. So getting the components for gasoline from the air rather than drilling fossils and everything like that. So I got Porsche because of its clean energy investments that it's making.
So going back to the like your app development or app developing, I also wanted to know too, like I was about to say, yeah. So was like app developing or like coding? Was that something like that just always interested you, or was it just something that you kind of just learned and then you just kind of just kept and then you kind of just enjoyed it?
Half and half. I was always interested in technology, but I didn't really start coding until late high school and in college. Now, I graduated high school in 2012, which is when coding was still very difficult. Like, coding is difficult, but it's easier today than it ever really has been. I'll be totally honest. Like, Python was in its infancy or really just not around, and Java was your best bet. And most people just, when they think of like their simplest lines of code, it looks like
Hello world.
Print parentheses, print open parentheses, double quote, hello world, double quote, and parentheses, and then it just works. For me, I had to do, my first hello world was system.out.println parentheses, quote, hello world, quote, end parentheses, semicolon.
You lost me already.
Yeah, so it's like, it was just a lot, that was Java. That was the first language I really dove into. And then JavaScript was also not easy. It's not as easy as it is today. IDEs for like actually writing the code were basically kind of like glorified text editors. Like they were nowhere near as helpful at predicting things. There was no prediction. Like it was just basically, it showed you if you made an error, but you had to actually, like it was really you just like writing a text file and you had something that pointed out when you made an error. But like I was writing on a clip. So basically, if you're learning coding now, it's easier than it ever has been, and it allows people that want to learn coding to understand it a lot easier. But anyway, that's me trying to justify the fact that I didn't learn coding when I was in middle school. I learned it when I was late in high school. But I always liked it. Like what I was doing when I was in high school, this is the part that's going to make me sound like a total nerd since day one. So of course he would choose his career path and everything, and I swear to God, it's not it. I was a total nerd in high school, and one thing I did for money, not really money, I didn't make any kind of thing off it, but this is a little hack that I learned. When I was in high school, it was still worth it to jailbreak iPhones and jailbreak Android phones. And I mainly jailbroke Android phones. So what I would do is I would go on XDA developers, I would go on like a website that taught me how to like jailbreak or root, what's what we called with Android rooting, get root access or root my Android phone. And then I would make all these modifications to it. I would make it change colors. I would undervolt it, so make it less powerful, but get so much more battery out of it, things like that. I would get restricted apps that I wasn't supposed to have on there, things like, or I don't know, I would, even at one point I like cracked open my Samsung Vibrant and then like I ordered a camera off of eBay and then I kind of like installed a front-facing camera on it and it actually worked. It didn't actually...
That's cool.
You couldn't actually send photos with it, but it allowed you to have like kind of a mirror on it. But like, so I would mess around with phones, and I still have photos on Facebook of me like taking apart the little phone. But so I was always interested in technology, but I didn't really make money off of that. I would sell rooted phones to kids at school, so they would get like cool rooted phones that were like ultra hardcore and they got huge amounts of battery and they can get restricted apps on them. But and then that's what I would do. I would get like a newish phone, I would root it, and then I would try to sell it for a profit, or at least what I bought it for by the time I was finished with it. So I didn't really make a business off of that. That was just fun. But I was always technologically inclined. I always was interested in computers. I was always interested in like phones. I was kind of a geek, everything like that, but not like Marvel fan or Yu-Gi-Oh. I was more like into like that kind of stuff. But coding at the time was hard. It was just hard. I just didn't totally get it. Everything like I didn't. it took a while before it actually clicked. Like, oh, I get it. System is referencing this class, and then out is referencing a subclass of it. Like, it took me a while to wrap my head around how it worked. And then that made it a lot more interesting.
Yeah, this is cool, man.
I was always interested in like tech, but no, I was not breathing code from the time I was a middle schooler. I basically was like jailbreaking phones.
So how did you find your first few your first few clients? Like, did you cold call them, cold email?
What I did was I started my first client was myself, put it that way. In which, when I say that, I mean I made an app for fun, and then I would show it to people. And then after like a long time of showing it to people, you're probably gonna run into somebody that's like, hey, I know someone that needs this thing, and then you get your first client. And you're just like, hey, I'll make this website for you for like $500, and that website probably isn't even good coding. They just want someone to like make a WordPress site, or they want someone to make their Shopify for them, kind of thing like that. So you're first to save them time. So yeah, that's kind of what it is. Like, you kept showing your thing to people, and eventually someone is just like, hey, I know someone that wants that. Can you do that?
Bet, okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's just a numbers game, man. Just make stuff for no apparent benefit, and then just show people your stuff.
Does money buy happiness?
No. Well, it eliminates worry up until you receive a certain amount per year. Or it eliminates certain types of worries up until you receive a certain amount per year, but those worries are replaced by other worries. No. I'm just keeping it. Okay, no context. I'm going to answer the rest of these. No context.
Yeah.
But almost all of them are going to be gray. So,
yeah.
Like, mostly the answer I give, but there's a kind of gray in a little bit, so I'm going to say that. So this first one. Does money buy happiness? No.
What brings you the most happiness in your life?
That's not a yes or no question. Say, brings me the most happiness in my life. Substantive conversation, exploring new places, meeting interesting people, and seeing the less fortunate do well.
What is that something that you really want to do, or something that you really want to pursue and achieve in your lifetime?
I want to build the first elevated public transit system in Los Angeles and make this city less dependent on cars, so that you can actually meaningfully live in it and traverse it without the use of a car.
Chicago or LA?
LA.
Lucid or Rivian?
Rivian.
Rivian?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Take the tone of my voice in there. It's like also part of the answer.
My last question. What do you think is the meaning of life?
I don't know that life has a meaning. I think you just
Here.
I think you're here, and you do. As humans, we have. Okay, put it this way. I think the meaning of life is, if life has a meaning, I think it's to make a better world than you left. Leave a better world than you entered. If life has a meaning, it's to leave a better world than you entered. I think that evolution can really explain why we are the way we are, pretty much in almost every capacity, but simultaneously, we as humans have the almost soul ability. We are the only known species that has the ability to leave this world different or better than when we found it. And because we have that ability, I believe it is our responsibility to do that.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you, man.
Of course.
You're awesome, man.
I keep going for another hour or overtime,
absolutely,
whatever the
man.
hell you want.